Thank you, Chairman Cardin. Mr. Hook, I'd like to start with you. And first, I'd like to echo the sentiment that was reflected by Ranking Member Risch. Your service as Special Envoy was exceptional. And I think a mark of that, unfortunately, is the fact that you have extraordinary threats against your life and your family's life right now. In fact, I just received reports from the State Department that there remain serious and credible threats against Mr. Hook and his family. I regret you have to live through this, but I would take it as a badge of honor in terms of the effectiveness of the role that you played. And I want to talk about the role that you played and the role that was played in the Trump administration, because we took a very different approach than what has been undertaken today. We moved our embassy to Jerusalem. No war. We acknowledged Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. No war. We withdrew from the JCPOA. No war. We entered the Abraham Accords. No war. In fact, what happened? Iran felt the pressure. We kept their enrichment below 4%. We took the pallets of cash delivered by the Obama administration and Jack Lew himself. We took those pallets of cash to a reserve level below $8 billion. Hamas and Hezbollah were widely reported as broke. You mentioned the connection there. Somehow the strategy has changed. 3 years into this new strategy, where are we? Iran is enriching now greater than 60%. Sudan, fallen into civil war. Israel, on October the 7th, saw the greatest loss of Jewish lives since the Holocaust. The Houthis have taken control over shipping in the Red Sea, driving up inflation here, endangering lives around the world, disrupting supply chains. And we have a situation right now where Iran-backed terrorists in Iraq and Syria are attacking U.S. personnel, and they've killed 3 U.S. heroes. So, Mr. Hook, I'd like to ask you, what has changed? What has changed in these 3 years?
I think what has changed is a return to the sort of the Obama administration focus on the Iran nuclear deal at the expense of regional stability. And I understand the premise that you need to focus on the biggest threat, which is the nuclear piece. But you cannot relax your vigilance and your deterrence against this regime. And you're more likely to get the deal you want if you take a very strong approach, as we did, around financial sanctions, credible threat of military force, diplomatic isolation. And, you know, earlier when Senator Menendez asked about alliance building, Senator, when you were our ambassador to Japan, you worked closely with Prime Minister Abe to, Japan has a 60-year relationship history, with Iran.
They were tough discussions, I'll tell you.
And while Prime Minister Abe is in Iran, they blew up Iranian oil tankers. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a wake-up call for the regime, for the Japanese. They then started to get on their front foot and impose sanctions. And so I think it is vital to do alliance building in this regard. An Iranian regime with a nuclear weapon dominating the Middle East is in the interest of almost no country in the world.
I cannot agree with you more. I can tell you the conversations with Prime Minister Abe were quite difficult. He talked about the decades-long relationship, but it was a simple question. You can do business with the United States, you can do business with Iran, but you can't do business with both. And as tough as it was, we got to the right solution, and we did isolate Iran, and we brought their revenues down, their cash reserves down to below $8 billion. We brought their production down to below 300,000 barrels a day. And now, with another person taking the job, a guy named Rob Malley, who's now under federal investigation, stopped enforcing the sanctions wholeheartedly. What we see now is an Iranian regime with over $100 billion that have flowed back in. You mentioned Rouhani talking about the $200 billion impact that we had with our sanctions. They've gotten more than half of that back with Malley forcing the administration to look the other way. It's a disgrace. We've seen the results in the Middle East. we've got to bring Iran back under maximum pressure. I agree with what Senator Menendez said, too. We need to get our allies on board with this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Cardin, Ranking Member